Hello and welcome back to a new watercolour paint along. Today I'm painting this cute picture of these little plant pots with faces. I'm using Daniel Smith watercolours. I'll list all the colours below in the description, and you can download the line work on my Patreon. There'll be a link below in the video description. It's free, by the way. And I'm also using Archie's watercolour paper today. I'm using a pencil, a technical pencil, a mechanical pencil, just any white gel pen, some graphite, and I'm using two brushes, a little liner brush and a size 5 round.
Easy rider on the highway, station wagon going slow, windows open, you are basking in the bluegrass radio. It is easy now to see you with your hand out on the wind. I keep this folded at the corner so that I could not forget. Folded at the corner so that I could not forget. Pink azaleas by your driveway, shade our leisurely goodbyes, in your terry cotton sweater.
Okay, so I've got the pencil sketch on the page. If you notice, I've left out the strokes. They're only very, very light. I don't want heavy pencil marks on those. And I haven't put in these shaded lines either. I'll add those at the end. So I'm going to start with the little plant pots, and I'm going to put a base layer of colour down first of all. Let that dry and then add more layers. So I'm going to get some raw sienna, some burnt sienna. We don't need much paint because it's not really very large area to cover. Some raw umber, and some sepia. And starting with the raw sienna, I'm going to paint that into the first little plant pot, but just the main part, just the middle section. I'm going to grab a little bit of the raw umber and drop it in around, just dab it in around the sides like this. And just a little bit across the top, not much. Then I'm just going to wash my brush and dab off the water so it's just damp. And just across the face area, we want that lighter, so I'm going to lift out some of that colour just across the face to brighten the face up. I'm going to use the burnt sienna for the middle one.
In the bluegrass radio, it is easy now to see you with your hand out on the wind. I keep this folded at the corner so that I could not forget. Folded at the corner so that I could not forget. Pink azaleas by your driveway, shade our leisurely goodbyes,
And then this one I'm going to paint the whole pot in the raw sienna. And I'm going to use the burnt sienna around the edges of this one, just to give a bit of variety in the colour.
It was then I had a knowing. You were waving till the bend. I keep this folded at the corner so that I could not forget. Folded at the corner so that I could not forget.
Now I'm going to dry that off with the heat gun, and I'm going to do these sections in the raw umber. And then I'm going to lift out a highlight around this area. I'm actually just going to paint this bottom bit with the raw sienna again, just to make it, because we're going to have two dark areas here, so I don't want it to be exactly the same. I'm trying to make them different. Now the colour's looking a little bit dull, and I want to make it a little bit more orangey. So I'm going to get some of the Aussie Red Gold, which is like a super bright rusty colour, and I'm just going to put a glaze over the top of the kind of terracotta coloured parts. I'll just make sure it's all completely dry first. So if you're new to watercolour, this is called glazing, where you're just adding a transparent layer of colour over the top of dried paint. So that's really brightened that colour up. Next I'm going to add a little bit of shading over the top, but it's going to be wet on dry, so the paper's dry and it's not going to be like a blend. So I'm going to use, for the first pot, I'm going to use Piemontite, which is quite a bit of a more of a burgundy colour, and I don't want loads on the brush, so I'm going to wipe some of it off. And then I'm just going to go right across the edge. Across the bottom. I'm just swiping across like this. I'm going underneath the ridge. Just trying to really darken the shaded areas. Not so much this side, do it mainly this side, and then we'll go over the bottom area. This little section underneath would be darker. I'll use the same for this, the Piemontite. A little bit of shading here where this plant would cast a shadow. So So just put a little bit of shading there. For this one, I'm going to use Quinacridone Burnt Orange, which is a really much stronger dark rusty colour. Then I'm drying the brush off and then just kind of blending that a little bit down this side. So it's almost like dry brushing at this point, but there's not much paint left on the brush, just to blend it a little bit. And just a little bit on this edge. Maybe go right around this edge and across the bottom. But this would be the darkest area. I'm just dabbing a little bit, just because I don't want a harsh line. And then I might lift a little bit of that out. It's looking a little bit harsh. We'll see what it looks like at the end. And then if these shadows are looking just too dark, we can lift a little bit out. I'm just gonna blend this little bit here, little bit. It's almost like you'd carve in the paint to put it where you want it. Then I'm going to use the sepia to darken these areas, mainly at the sides. And then I'm stroking across like this. And then with this not much of paint left on the brush, and I don't want to cover that highlight, but I'm just dragging the brush in little strokes across. And then I'm going to do the same for these two. To the leaf areas. I want a green, but I want a muted green. Serpentine's too saturated, so I'm going to mix it with the Zoisite green and hopefully I'll get a nice muted green. Yep, that's kind of the colour I'm going for. So I'm now going to get some of that and make a really watery version. Add loads of water. Yep. And I'm going to just do a really light layer over all of the leaves and stalks. So I'm just using this little liner brush. Now that that's dry, with the stronger mix, I'm going to add some little shaded areas. Just kind of, I'm going to, like this leaf here, I'm going to do a line and then draw in some of the little veins, just like that. These leaves are kind of behind. I'm just adding some little shaded areas. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. And you can see where this particular little leaf looks like it's behind, so I'll add a little bit of shading there. And then the ones that are kind of at the front, add some little veins. And then on the right hand side of the stalks, I'm going to do a very thin, darker line. Now I'm going to get the raw umber and put in the soil. Now that green paint's still a little bit wet, so if it runs in, that's fine. If they just blend together, I'm just going to rub along that line. Make it a little bit bumpy. And then here I'm just going to mix some of that green with some brown. And add some more shading right at the bottom. So that was a little bit of sepia mixed in with that dark green mix. And then I'll do the same here. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the flowers and start with this one. I'm going to use the Aussie Red Gold, quite watered down, and just do like a base layer. Then I've mixed a little bit of that with the green, and I'm going to colour this in so that this is a mixture of the green and the Aussie Red Gold. Just paint this bit in. Leave that to dry. And then these ones here, I'm just going to put like little star shape with the Aussie Red Gold, little star shape flowers. Just like little messy. Just to give the impression that there's some kind of fluffy orange flower there. Just a few little dots here on these little ones here. And then for this flower I want it a lighter colour, so I've got a little bit of Jane's Grey and then a little bit of that Aussie Red Gold. I'm going to mix that in just to make a kind of a shadow colour. I'm just going to kind of create a little bit of shading. So leave a white part. And just paint each little petal individually. I'm just kind of doing it in a curve at the bottom area. And then maybe add a little bit more of the Aussie Red Gold at the bottom. Blend that line a little bit. I'll leave that to dry, and I'm getting some of the burnt sienna and I'm going to create some shadowing on these petals with the burnt sienna. little bit of green on this bit. Need to do a darker line on here. Just add a little bit more of that mixture to the bottom of these petals. So I think I'll leave it at that for the flowers and the foliage, and I'll just do some finishing touches to the plant pots. I'm going to get a really strong mix of Jane's Grey, paint little black eyes. On the mouth. Then I'm going to get some of that Piemontite and paint the little cheeks in. Little oval shapes. They're a little bit strong. I'm going to lift some of that out. Don't want them to be that harsh. Now I'm going to do the shelf that they're sitting on, and I'm going to use the sepia for this. So just a fairly watery line. Just go right underneath plant pots. And see how that's actually created a nice little shadow there, because I overlapped this one a little bit and it worked perfect. And then I'm going to just get some water on the brush and then just scrub back and forward across that line. Try and make them kind of evenish on the paper. Get a little bit stronger mix on the very tip of the brush. So it's fairly strong right from the pan, and I'm going right across the top of there and just letting it blend down on its own. I'm going to go over that again because it has dried really light. Then just mess it up a little bit like that. Okay, so almost there. Okay, I'm going to dry that all off one final time and then add some tiny details. So I've got the pencil now, and I'm going to put in these little lines just to add some extra shading. So we want some on the plant pots and then also on this ridge here. So I don't want to use a black pen because I don't want it to be that harsh. So I'm using a graphite pencil. I'm using a technical pencil, and then because it's nice and fine. So I'm going to start with the plants, and I'm just going to emphasize some of the outside lines, and then just do in the shaded areas little lines. I mean, you can't really see them that much, but it just helps to define that shaded area. I mean, you don't have to add these if you don't want to. Now I'm just going to get a white pen and add just some little dots to the eyes. Just going to do it the top left. No, top right. And there we go. I think it looks quite cute. Yeah, there we go. Finished. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please give me a like and subscribe. And there's a new feature on YouTube. I think when you click on like, it'll ask you if you want to hype the video. So this is a new thing. So if you could hype the video for me, that would be absolutely brilliant. So I'll have another video up on Sunday.